Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, so excited for today's episode of Driving with Dave. I've got special guest, friend of mine for a very long time, very funny stand-up comedian, Todd Doram.
Hello, everybody, and please forgive me adjusting my eyebrows after the introduction, but I'm 42 years old. These things get a little unruly.
You don't look a day over 36, buddy. I got to tell you what. All right, so what brings you? You have the coveted luxury of being one of the last friends I saw in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because you helped me move. Thank you a million.
Look, you offered pizza, and generously you also paid me.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is most people just go with the pizza.
Yeah, that is.
But it's like once you get 30, you're hurting your body.
Yeah.
To do this work, so there's no free. There's no just like working for pizza.
Also, I'm not above $100.
Who is?
You know, so
$100 can go a long way.
A long way.
And what brings you to Nashville?
Do I have a day job? Yeah, I still have a day job. Okay, I'm a comic, but you boys got to pay some bills. So the headquarters is out here. I like to do a fly out, let the sales execs know that I mean business, and try to secure some deals to go back to LA, do our thing.
What's the biggest goal to get stand up to the point where you don't need the day job?
Oh yeah.
What's the big vision goal? Let's get right into it.
So it used to be before COVID, I was only producing and performing. Now, I was not making enough to really pay all the bills, but I had so much activity that having a day job was time inefficient. So the goal by the end of summer is to have my productions and my performances pay all my bills and then some, to where I can't do a day job because it's actually costing me money at that point.
That's the beauty when you can no longer juggle because the thing you want to do finally feeds the thing you know who you are. And I kind of feel like that's the inevitable struggle that I think people that might be I don't know, trust fund babies might not understand.
Yeah.
The idea of I need to pay my bills so I can do the thing I love to do, and then when the thing I love I do takes off, you'll have the immense gratitude because of the hustle that got you there.
Yeah. Now, I'm not above somebody, let's just say hypothetically, adopting a 42-year-old and giving me part of their trust fund or all of it.
Yeah, like a sugar mama kind of thing.
Yeah, if somebody
it's like a sugar mama Shark Tank.
New idea.
Dear Shark, for 50% of my future stand-up sales.
Yeah, I will make you breakfast burritos in the morning. Really good at those, and then laugh. Make your friends laugh when they are over for cocktails later at night. That's the best I got.
YouTube tries to do this. There are so many companies that want to front you money in the off chance your YouTube takes off.
Ooh, nice.
Which sounds good, but they're literally buying equity and then they own you, and it's I don't know, it's predatory as hell. Yeah. But it's the idea of how do you fund creativity, and I think it comes down to any amount of funding if someone gave you $1 million to go write a book, you'll write the book.
Yeah.
But if the $1 million is waiting once you finish the book, you're definitely, that's why you don't pay the contractor too soon. Paint the house first. Exactly. But that's creativity, right? It's you don't get paid for your hour until you're really good at it.
Yeah. And
that might be 10 or 15 years of not being able to command, intern to CEO. No middleman there.
Yeah. Well, for me, I have it's not a fast track, but I have a proven way that I know that I can get a high margin for my comedy. So I think there's a couple ways to look at how you're going to monetize being funny. Well, for me, I do these private shows where somebody is going to spend a lot of money on their 40th, 50th birthday party, 50th wedding anniversary, something like that. I do these roasts that are expensive, but they're the most memorable thing you can get. So I'm going to peel off one or two of those a month, and that alone is going to put me in a spot to where my day job I just can't do it anymore because it's costing me money.
Love it. I love innovation with creativity.
Yeah, I'm Elon Musk for comedy with a little bit of Steve Jobs and Tesla also.
Yeah, you're the cyber roast.
Cyber roast, baby.
There it is.
Who's doing that?
No, I mean, but this, by the way, I didn't do a going away party because I didn't want to I just didn't want to deal with the feelings of going somewhere,
But Dave does do feelings well, in his defense.
I was crying thinking about the conversation I want to have with you. I'm not kidding. With the right people, I open up to the point where they probably get really uncomfortable with me.
Yeah.
But so I do this show in Huntington Beach, and you're on it, and a couple other pals are
Which
on
I'm
it.
grateful for. That was a really fun show.
And it ended up being a great show, and that was kind of like my going away moment without me telling people, hey, this is like I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I was trying to sucker a bunch of people into buying tickets, like you'll never see me again.
Yeah.
But having friends like you there was really special. Yeah, it was really special for me.
So to backtrack for people listening, Dave and I met through, and shouts out to Sean Leary for putting this together. Sean Leary had this, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee came out with Jerry Seinfeld, and Sean Leary made this a Facebook group for LA comics called Comedians on the Beach Playing Volleyball.
Yes.
And I had just started stand-up. It was probably 8 or 9 years ago, and I was like, I need to get integrated into this community. What camera should I look at? Or should I
you
just
look at
forward?
wherever you want.
That's respect.
The camera will find you. Oh, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
My Friday night will be me choosing the best Todd Doram shot. So you want to do a quick look over there? I'm cutting to you. Make it hard for me.
So Comedians on the Beach Playing Volleyball was created as a group for just people to play volleyball on Saturdays. And I was like, I don't really know anyone in this community. I want to be a good stand-up. So this is my first integration. This is natural. I'm from Redondo Beach. We do beach volleyball. So off we go. So I go there. I think the first day I went, I met Dave Neal and Andy Lazarus, two of my closest friends to this day in stand-up.
Isn't that wild?
And this is all just because we were just slapping it around on the beach one day. And now, then fast forward like another year and a half or so, and I produced a show that was highly illegal in a garage in Redondo Beach.
Which, by the way, one of the comedians hit on Tasha.
That night?
Yeah. The guy who raps. He tried to get her phone number.
Oh,
He didn't know she was with me.
amazing.
She's like, you know what?
Leave it up to me to hire a rapping comedian to hit on your
A
girlfriend. at my show.
white rapping.
Amazing.
I was like, hey, I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, very illegal.
Extremely. If not if a fire breaks out, but like if a matchbook sets on fire, the whole place goes up in flames. That's how small and how little.
You know what I loved
we
about
were.
that room? No microphone. And I love shows with no microphone. It takes away the little leash that we have that holds us back.
Yeah. So it was just a great show. Dave did it, and I've since progressed. I had a show at the Laugh Factory of my own in Hollywood. Dave's moved a family from money he's made in entertainment, and I'm just like, to me, like, it was wildly cathartic that like I was on your show and you had fans. Like, it wasn't that you had a show at a club, which is cool, but like your fans were there and that they wanted to meet you after because what you put out they resonate with, and it's just like that's the whole point of what we do, and you're doing it. Like, there is no version of living the dream if you're not it right now.
I tell you what, the first time that happened to me,
Dave.
the first time that happened to me was in New York, and I had a couple of really close friends come to a show, and then afterwards a few audience members. Again, this was just after YouTube started to take off. Some audience members came up to me and brought gifts, and they traveled from like 2 hours away.
Amazing.
To the show. And the real joy, I truly mean this, was my buddies seeing that for me, because they but your buddies have always been around. Like, they know the grind and all of that. So for them to see that, I guarantee they were losing their shit over it. And I was too, but I was like, this is so cool.
I was freaking out. So there's a guy, maybe your fans know, maybe they don't, but there's a gentleman named Trevor Wallace who is really like exploding. He's selling out worldwide. He'll announce a tour. It'll be sold out in like days. And yeah, he's opening up for the biggest acts in comedy, period, in arenas, but Trevor is just a workhorse. He puts out incredible sketches. He's a really funny dude, awesome guy as a person in general. And like same time frame, like about 7 years ago, we were doing a backyard show in Brentwood and at like it's like a frat house backyard or something like that. And his YouTube and posts on social media were so funny. He was like gathering speed that someone drove 2 hours away, and then they waited from San Diego, and they waited after to meet him, and they were like, they knew that they were like meeting a star in entertainment. And I got to take the photo for this brother and sister who saw their favorite comedian, and I was like, man, they get it. They know that this guy's about to be a star, and right now he's internationally. And his Amazon series or special that just came out was #1 for like weeks.
And he was able to do all of that because he had the equity, the fan base. That's what's cool about stand-up is you get to see the fans start to show up.
Yeah.
And you can go, all right, well, now I'm selling 20 tickets, and that's awesome. You know, I probably only sold 50 tickets at that show that you were with me at. But, like, when that turns into a theater, you go, whoa.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, when you're a smaller producer like me and you're literally, like, bludgeoning your friends that you grew up with from high school to come to your little room that you're producing, like, you know everybody in the crowd. So when you have strangers show up, you're like, wow, a stranger's there. Oh, that's what this is like.
It's crazy, and you start to guard those people like they're your own children.
Yeah,
because you go, and like I won't promote shows if I don't know it's going to be a decent room, because I don't want people coming from 3 hours away to a show that's not going to live up to their expectation.
And if you have not seen Dave do stand up, let me be crystal clear: this dude's a pro. This dude's funny. This dude on stage is in his living room with some pajamas and Crocs, bro. This guy's comfy, cozy on stage, and just absolutely up there cooking.
That means a lot to me because
he's funny, man. You guys,
I don't mean this in any sort of jaded way. I don't get stand-up accolades, and I'm very blue collar with it.
This dude's got that smoke.
Oh, thanks. No, but you know how it is. Like, I don't get, there's always like best of the Fed. That's just not me. That's just not, I've never been that guy. And sometimes you're just figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
But thank you. And you too. I mean, I hadn't seen you perform in a while. So that's what's great about, I think, Comedy Friends, when you don't see someone perform in a while and then you get to see their new bit as a fan. Yeah. I got to see some of your new material, which actually might lead us into this conversation. I wanted to talk to you about what life is like growing up mixed race, white leaning. And I mean, no disrespect by saying that.
Well, it's not even like white leaning. It's just white obvious.
But I say that because you have a very funny joke. Don't do it. But you have a very funny joke about your hair.
Yeah.
But so I wouldn't have known if it wasn't for your stand up.
Yeah.
That you come from a mixed race family. Totally.
So, I'll just do it because whatever.
Go for it.
All right. So my dad's half black and my mom's all white, and I know what I look like. Okay. So the melanin just got diluted over the years. All right. My dad has a skin tone of LeBron James. Sorry. My grandfather has a skin tone of LeBron James. My dad has a skin tone of James Earl Jones. And I came out exactly like James Vanderbeek. Okay. The melanin just got diluted over the years. All right. And when everything was happening over 2020 with Black Lives Matter, it really affected me because my cousins, people I go to church with, my family members are every skin shade of black under the sun. And it was affecting me knowing that just their skin color alone could put them at risk of being killed by the police, being killed just because a neighbor suspects them inappropriately by wearing a hoodie, right? So I wanted to grow my hair out as an expression of who I am as a person because my dad taught me to be proud of myself. And maybe, just maybe, to get a little bit of street cred in the black community. And let me tell you, it is backfiring so badly because there are no black people who respect me, okay? It's just a bunch of Jewish dudes who are like, is this guy with the tribe? Like, what's going on with the hair? Only black person to like recognize me was this lady at the TSA, and she walks up to me and she's like, you know who you look like? You look like Kenny G. And she saw me wash in disappointment, and she's trying to console me. She's like, oh, it's okay, Kenny G's hot. And I'm like, ma'am, no one's ever said that. So that's a joke, obviously a little bit different in person, but the reality.
But good tension by by making it starting, heavy.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That builds attention.
Yeah, and then by the time I hit the nothing but Jewish dudes, people it dawns on them why does this guy have long curly hair? And this is just my hair. This morning I shampooed it and conditioned it, and that's it.
No product.
No product.
There you go.
Now the other thing is this.
It's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
The curls, really.
There's a tag that I've
Everyone who's listening on the audio is rushing to the YouTube to see. By the way, shout out your Instagram just so people can reference.
It's Todd Marcel Doram, and it used to be Todd Comedy, TD Comedy, and I threw the Marcel in there because my middle name is probably the blackest thing about me.
You're trying to get some affirmative action Instagram?
Yeah, I try to get that little branding in there because Todd is as white as it gets.
Pretty white.
And Marcel is as black as it gets. There's no white person named Marcel. There just is not.
Yeah, you can't say Marcel without Marcel.
Also, you can't say Marcel without feeling cool. And Todd is there's memes about guys named Todd.
Yeah, 4-letter white guy.
Correct.
That's it. All these 4-letter white guys out here.
Yeah, and any assumption about anybody named Marcel is that guy's got game. And I need the two to balance each other out.
I like it.
So I throw Todd Marcel Doram, that's my middle name. And anytime I toss the middle name out there to a black person, I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That plus hair, okay, copy that. So
no, it does make sense when you do the bit. I think audiences probably go, oh, but when you throw the Jewish, it's whenever you explain a joke, you kill it, right? But
totally, yeah.
It's as an audience member, I'm watching that joke going, oh, fucking great, because you get to tell a joke and explain your background and your perspective coming from this, being a diluted melanin, as you say.
Yeah. So
I think that's fantastic.
And thank you, man. I appreciate that. It means a lot from you. And then also, I have yet to tell this on stage. I was supposed to do it last weekend, but the other thing about my hair is that it's very accurate to the percentage of black that I am, right? Because if you've ever seen a black dude with a beautiful afro, they're the dopest, most perfectly microphone sculpted afros of all time. Very few black dudes do grow an afro, or they're not awesome, or a black woman that's got a good afro. They just look really phenomenal. And I don't think there's a person who doesn't look at it and go, that looks awesome. Whereas mine is 75% terrible. This is my afro.
Yeah, you're on the paint palette of, you're on the spectrum.
Yeah.
You're on the spectrum.
And my melanin got diluted, and then the quality of my afro also got diluted by the exact percentage of black that I am. By the way, I say that I'm mixed because if I say that I'm black, that's not a reality. The reality is if you have black skin, if you have more melanin in your skin in this country, you get treated differently.
But you at least have a greater empathy because close family doesn't necessarily look like do you have cousins that
some of my cousins are as melanated as you can get, and and some of the best people that you could imagine, they're exactly what Martin Luther King asked for, which is don't judge people by the color of their skin but by the content of their character. Some of the most highest character people you could imagine, and I literally am just based on if they wear a hoodie or not, they could be mistaken for somebody. If somebody was being prejudiced, for somebody nefarious, and then they're going to get caught in a circumstance where, that could risk their life.
So
that's horrifying.
It's horrifying. And the easiest way to build empathy is to somehow relate that circumstance. Say there's a 10-year-old who gets shot because they have a hoodie on. To try to relate that to someone, I have to think of my younger brother as a 10-year-old, and you just see that you see the child. Yeah. Now I say that because if you don't do the work to see the humanity in others, there is a scientific term called other face syndrome or other person syndrome. And it came out recently in my community because there was 2 Asian women that were mistagged in an Instagram photo from The Bachelor.
Oh, wow.
And when people don't look like your generic background, it's harder to see specific differences. I can tell what a traditional Vietnamese person would look like versus a Japanese or a Cantonese person, because I've I've traveled a little bit through, or it just, but maybe not growing up. You might just not be, that person looks different than me. And so like it might be very obvious to tell someone who might have roots from Western Africa versus Eastern or Central or these things, but not everybody. So I know personally that black women say I look like Tom Cruise. White people go, what are you talking about? But I can tell you anecdotally, I only get that compliment from black women.
Love it.
And I probably don't get it from black men, because why would they tell me that? So it's just black women. But and sure enough, I was I don't want to call it brave enough, but honest enough to have this conversation. And I had people in the comment section go, I'm a black woman. This is so true. I watched Ocean's 11, and I couldn't tell any of the white men apart.
That's so
Leonardo DiCaprio and Bradley Cooper look exactly the same to me.
That's hilarious.
So that does exist. But being conscious of knowing that does exist might help people look a little closer into everyone's differences, not necessarily for any reason other than to know that we all are different, and we all have 99.9% of the same exact DNA, and these slight differences are exaggerated, like eye shapes and skin color and hair, but they are what differentiates us from each other.
Yeah, and so to your point, taking the time to understand that there's value in difference, and that to appreciate somebody's differences is exactly the way God intended to do it. Because if God made every person who was in the continent of Asia the same, then there wouldn't be differences among them, which should be celebrated. So, just like if somebody is African American in the sense that their genealogy traces back to Africa versus someone who's from Africa, those are differences to say what elements of culture does the person African American versus someone who like lives and is from Africa, what cultural differences exist, and how could those be celebrated? Like, as an example, yesterday or 2 days ago, I took a Uber, and my driver spoke only Spanish. I spoke just enough Spanish to conversate with him, and I asked him where he was from, and he said Venezuela. And I know enough to know that Venezuelan food and Mexican food are not the same.
Right.
Even though I'm talking Spanish to this guy, I'm not going to ask him, do you like the Mexican food? I'm going to say, is there any Venezuelan food out here that you like? Because if you ask a Venezuelan guy, is he from Mexico? Because he speaks Spanish, that is deeply offensive. No different than if you ask a Korean person, are they Japanese? And you don't know the fact that the Japanese and Koreans have a long history of not liking each other. Yeah. The Chinese and the Japanese have a long history of not liking, that traces back to war. It'd be no different than saying, like, if a German and an English person, like, if two people with white skin, and you just look at them and say, oh, are you from Germany? And the person's from England, and that person's grandfather was fighting against the Nazis. Like, you need to understand that these are differences. God created differences, and if you appreciate differences, then you can have a deeper connection with the person you're talking to.
Yeah, and it's no better exposed than during crowd work within stand-up, because I find that audiences really value if you know a little bit about their culture.
Yeah.
So if you're able to spot someone's accent and talk about where it's from and know a little bit about them, that's not like tokenism, or that's not like it's not a bad thing. And I think society, it's not political, although I think people can use it to their advantage in harmful ways. But I think in society, it's important that we embrace, like, if you go to an Indian wedding, everyone dresses up in the Indian, traditional garments, whether you practice that religion or not. It's just a sign of respect. And again, it all stems back from people, I think, using other people's culture to make fun of it. Obviously, that's where blackface comes from, right? Minstrel shows and things like that. So you have to be able to live in this world we live in and know when it's bad and mockery versus when you wear a kimono, because that's what everyone does whenever you do X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes the world interesting. And yet at the same time, I think a lot of people don't overthink these things, but with comedy, yeah, you want to know a lot about a lot of cultures. You want to know a lot about pop culture and cultural issues.
Yeah.
You want to be able to spot someone who's maybe Colombian versus, like you said, a Venezuelan. It's those are assets to have, not just on stage, but just culturally when you want to talk to an Uber driver. Or, we were in Qatar and I didn't know anything about the Middle East.
Yeah.
But now I know a little bit about just the beginning of a different part of the world and culturally what it's like over there.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you some questions about your faith.
Let's do it.
I've been accused of being anti-religion, but I think it's from people that are afraid of what I say. I think I'm anti-high control religion.
Yeah.
So I talk a lot about purity culture and the harmful effects of some of the sort of things that go on with that, which I personally think, when I think of you as a West Coast guy, I think you are one of the highest energy, loving people I know.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
Tell me about your faith.
I think it's the same with the way of you.
Oh, thank you. And again, I was raised Catholic. I say that a lot. My family's still practicing Catholic. It's very different from a lot of other kind of Christian-based religions. But anyhow, tell me, have you always had your faith?
Yeah, good question. And I'm very grateful that I grew up as a Catholic. A lot of people like to knock Catholicism. Great. What are you doing better for the world?
Did you grow up as a Catholic?
I did, yeah.
I know that.
So I grew up as a Catholic. My mom
in
was...
Redondo?
In Redondo, yeah. There was a church that was like one of the main Catholic churches in our area.
What percentage of kids that you went to school with were Catholic? Was there a high?
I would say I grew up thankfully in the 80s and the 90s, and there was still a lot of people that were going to church. I mean, our midnight mass at American Martyrs Church in Manhattan was packed to the gills every single. Yeah.
Because SoCal's definitely got more New Age religion.
Yeah.
New England, high 90%.
Yeah.
So therefore, Catholic almost didn't feel like a religion because it was so cultural.
Yeah. Culturally, it was still very prevalent, and I could really only judge the rate of Catholicism from when I was a kid until right now. I went to midnight mass with my mom this most recent Christmas, and they actually literally canceled midnight mass, and they're only doing it at like 10 o'clock because the attendance is so low. Whereas when I was growing up, not only was it completely full, but it was overflowing. So Catholicism from that microcosm has experienced a big shift in the downward trend, which, you know what, I find is unfortunate, and I don't know how to explain it to the mass context, but, I grew up a Catholic, and I am grateful for that because it really taught me I think there's a good thing about fear of God, because you fear that actions have consequences, and that I'm not saying heaven or hell. I'm just saying you're not in control of everything, and that if you just did everything from your human instinct, man, this place would be even more chaos than it already is.
I do think humans seek structure, and you can see that in any civilization.
Correct.
I think my biggest issues with religion are very common and obvious ones, which is when men seek to control others. And with my growing up Catholic, there's no go to church or not, but it's really about the community you make. So some churches had better community than others. But we're actually, where we're going right now, there's a church where they lost their tax exemption status because they were burning books and yelling at people. I'm talking crazy stuff. So do you get offended by the people that give religion and the sort of community that comes around church? How do you sort of digest the people that give it a very bad name?
Yeah. Well, the reality is, just like what you're saying, there's a lot of people who give organized churches and religions a bad name, rightfully so. Okay, they're doing a very easy job of making Christianity or people who follow Jesus the bad guy, because I just saw something recently where a guy in the pulpit, it was a tweet. Now this kind of tweet is going to get way more headlines than people who are really doing it right. And I could list off 100 of them off the top of my head that are doing it so right that people would be blown away, and they'd be like, I'll literally follow that person and whoever they serve, because if they're doing that in such a sacrificial way, I want to be a part of it.
True preachers with true messages.
Oh, bro, you'd not believe.
Because it's all about it's not to interrupt, but with stand-up, or playing piano or being a preacher.
Yeah.
It's about getting the energy up, loving energy. There's only one type. It's either positive or negative,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
And it's about getting that energy up and changing people and spreading love.
Yeah.
And for some, it's easier to lead with fear, to be afraid of things. And as you're saying, those people do get the attention because they are crazy.
Yeah. So I'll just give you a couple examples. To your original question, I think that, okay, bad news is going to get headlines in any direction. So a preacher goes on the microphone and says, and this is on Twitter, it went viral recently, he said that if he was on the jury and he saw a woman got raped and she was wearing some shorts, that if he was on the jury, the guy that raped her was going to go off innocent because a girl shouldn't be wearing that. Like, bro, how is that headline?
Don't attach that to my beliefs. Yeah.
How is that headline supposed to compete with our church, who has actively been sponsoring so many different ministries that serve the homeless, that serve kids in foster care, we fund 2 different sobriety houses. How is my church that does that? How are we supposed to compete with that headline?
Yeah.
We're not going to.
Yeah. And you're not going to get the same clicks.
You're not going to get the same clicks whatsoever, but it happens. So if you want to paint, if anybody out there watching wants to paint Christianity, Jesus followers in the broad stroke of anybody else, that is just as prejudiced as any other thing that you don't want to exist in life. So you need to examine what it is that you're talking about and how you're thinking about people, and give people space to be themselves and to figure out what they're trying to propagate out there, which, like, I don't think there's any perfect church. There's no perfect government. There's no perfect school system, but there are people doing it right.
Yeah.
And so why don't you take some time to do some research on your own to find out, like, before you join a church or try to, like, visit, what is their about section? What ministries do they service? And you could find some people that you could really connect with in order to be able to go, all right, Jesus modeled this. In my context, I believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. His Holy Spirit is the most powerful presence, and I've got so many personal and other anecdotes to prove this, but this is what I believe, and the way that I serve him is indicative of those belief structures.
Yeah. It's very well said. I have a ton of faults, and there's a bunch of people who could watch this and go, yeah, but that guy did this and that guy did that, and by no means am I perfect or other followers perfect, which goes back to we should be giving each other enough grace and mercy to make mistakes and forgive. Grace is important. I speak nothing but grace. I used to be a lot harder on the contestants I cover on my channel until I started to get a little heat myself.
Yeah.
And I realized how hard it is to live up to everyone's perfection.
Yeah.
But I also do think, like we said, there are aspects of religion that people have sort of made, like I couldn't say certain words growing up because it took God's name in vain.
Yeah.
And I understand the ideas behind a lot of this, but at the same time, I think there's people that will use quotes maybe taken wrongly out of the Bible to go back to the fear-based aspect to control others. So in hindsight, you have people, again, I didn't grow up in this, so I don't have some big purity culture shock. No one was really caring if you fucked or not when I grew up.
Yeah.
I didn't get laid because I didn't have good game, not because of my religion. Trust me. I was like, oh, he must have been religious.
Yeah.
No, guy.
Yeah,
I just couldn't speak.
I didn't have it.
Yeah, I didn't have the hair flowing in the right direction. I had bangs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I know people that, like my wife, she, couldn't, wear a normal bathing suit without being shamed and putting a shirt over it. And things like that can leave a lot of people wounded. So unfortunately, people will go, oh, religion's this and that. And it's like, no, you're right. I mean, government's corrupt. Religion can be corrupt. All these things can exist. I have an uncle who's a priest. And when my wife and when Tasha and I were back at home in September, I have an uncle who's a priest and an uncle who's a doctor. And we didn't tell our family that we were pregnant yet because it was only 6 weeks. And Tasha got COVID, which was not to cry, but it's really scary.
Yeah.
Because, again, sorry.
No.
I told you it's going to cry. I didn't know it was going to be about this.
Yeah.
But we couldn't tell our family because you just don't do that until you're certain, there's just rules, right?
Yeah.
But how great to have like a priest and a doctor to talk to.
Totally.
Because they know how to handle like the priest's job is to handle tough circumstance where you can't necessarily solve everything with science.
Totally.
And then we had science there with their brother priest.
Yeah.
That sounds like a joke making it up, but they are two brothers that come from the same mom, and yet one's science-based and one's faith-based.
Yeah.
And yet they were both able to give us like love and prayer and all these things that we really needed.
Yeah. Because I know how much you care about. Here's another backstory that I like about my relationship with Dave is that Dave's doing stand. Okay, you have to. I think you guys understand this. Doing stand-up comedy in Los Angeles is wildly difficult, right? Then he meets a girl on set of a commercial or a shoot, and then they like each other, and then they date.
She'll argue that.
And then they date in Los Angeles. And then they fall in love. In Los Angeles, he's still doing stand-up. And he's building what you guys see right now from scratch. And they make it work. And then they get married. And then they get pregnant. All those things are like the hardest possible things that you could imagine to do. So when he's talking about the fact that they got pregnant, these are like literally like the end result. There's no Super Bowl that could compare to what he accomplished.
It was a lot. It takes...
They accomplished, both of them. So for them to like potentially have this risk factor of an illness and have the people back up is like massively, it's so massive. And imagining, okay, you can go to a doctor and get advice, but if the doctor's advice or response is not good, where do you go? And that's when people knock faith. It's like, all right, you're knocking faith, but like we live in a spiritual world, whether or not you agree to it. We do.
How about this little area? This is nice, isn't it?
Oh, we're driving over a lake right now.
But no, I mean, you're right, and it sounds silly. Like I didn't know I was going to get emotional, but it's a culmination of a lot of. I was talking to Tasha this morning. I made my first mortgage payment this morning.
Wow.
It's delayed a month, and I was like, it was our first payment like towards actually a home versus years of struggle. And
I
getting up at 4 a.m.
His struggle. They lived in a 1-bedroom studio in Koreatown.
600 square feet.
600 square feet studio. And this guy's doing
for
his
a long time.
Podcast out of a 600 square foot studio. You guys, I went to visit this guy. Him and Tasha could escape each other if they wanted to. It's the same room.
Couldn't fart without the other one knowing.
And the amount of noise, the amount of ambulances, the amount of nothing against people who are homeless, but the amount of like active dangers that could have been a threat to Tasha as a female. She takes her dog for a walk by herself. That's like that neighborhood was not good.
Knife fights, mattresses on fire being thrown at you.
So the fact that Dave and Tasha like did all of this and now they're in a house in the outskirts of Nashville where it's like they can breathe and they like this is massive. So also thank you guys for supporting this dude. We're on some real stuff.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, it was. I think you get good, and again, everyone out there's got a bigger struggle, but I think you get good at like as comedians, we're geared down, right? We're ready to live off out of the car. We're good to go. But with Tasha being my partner, she never doubted me, but she has her own level of realism. So until I did that first live stream, which had 17 people in the chat, and she was like, wow, someone's actually calling in, until I could show that people were showing up to shows, I don't know if she understood that was my sort of like light bulb turned on.
Yeah.
And you have those years where you wake up at 4 a.m. to go drive Uber and somehow didn't flip my car, falling asleep at night, driving, working that job.
Jeez.
Like you know how it is. So we talk about that. So when she got COVID, and you're not supposed to get a high fever when you're pregnant, especially early on. And so it was my brother's. It was the morning of his wedding, and Tasha couldn't go, and we couldn't tell anyone that she had COVID. She just got it really bad. I mean, she had it really bad. She couldn't get warm, and we were really desperate. And by the time we talked to the uncle who's a priest and the uncle who's a doctor, she was on the mend. It was the next day. It was a really tough day. And my brother found me. And I think he was like the only one I could tell.
Wow.
And it was on his wedding day.
Wow.
I'd be like, sorry, man, like, we're going through some stuff. And it was it was beautiful to have him there because he actually also had, his wife was pregnant early on when they couldn't tell anyone, so I could talk to him about it.
Yeah.
And everything, has been green lights since then. But it's just, you don't realize sometimes the shit you're holding on to until you can release it, and it can come out ugly. But that's like, if you don't release it, it's coming out in other ways, through bitterness, through anger, through all these things.
Totally.
So I've already been told this, that when you have a baby and all that, you just become mush. And I get it. I totally get it now. You just can't help it. It's like love's bigger than you.
Yeah, it is. And there's also things that are out of your control. And I think that a lot of things are out of our control. And I think the faith component, people look at that they could look at it as a weakness because you're, looking at something that you can't touch, see, or feel. But like a lot of what we do, we can't touch, see, or feel. This might sound like a very rudimentary comparison, but we're on a 2-lane highway right now. You and I have more faith in those 2 yellow lines than a lot of people have in anything. Because it's like, we're just assuming and have faith that the person on the other side of the highway is going to do their job, and we're going to do our job. Everyone has faith to some degree. But have you questioned it ever? Oh, are you kidding me? All kind of stuff. I took a big hit with my faith. I had a friend of mine in my early 20s that he got cancer, and I fasted. One time I fasted for 3 days with no food or water, which was a lot for me at the time. I mean, people do that all over the world like clockwork, but for me it was a lot. And I'm going to church. I went to church for my birthday. I'm like, this guy cannot die of cancer like this. He passed away. Yeah. Right?
How old was he?
23.
Jeez.
So early. Like Darren Marcy. That was a big hit. My faith took a big hit of that. A lot of other things where like I prayed for things to go well for me for work. I do sales and in entertainment. I've been so close to so many big breaks for so long that like it eroded my willingness to say, Lord, I need your help right now, because I don't know if the help is coming or not. Let's just be honest. But I've realized that, my part is I can do what I can control, which is certain activities and certain parts of process, and then the Lord's going to do His. And in that balance is the rest that it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to. That might sound like I'm kicking the can down the road or giving a cop out, but it's truly a restful way to receive peace, which Jesus called Himself the Prince of Peace. He is the Prince.
It's deep. It's like you can't just pray for a home run.
No, you can't.
Not go to batting practice and not.
Correct. That's a great analogy. That's as meatheady of an analogy as I could ever picture. But it's
how it is when you haven't been doing many open mics and you're like, I pray this bit comes out of my ass.
I pray.
I don't remember how it goes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, like I know for a fact that I can control if I'm taking my butt to an open mic or if I've rehearsed my bit. And if it sucks on stage, I can easily look to the fact that did you rehearse it or not?
I out of an awareness to my audience, not necessarily to my audience, but out of an awareness to people that get like turned away by religion, I almost just try to translate everything into energy.
Yeah.
Because I used to listen to a lot of Wayne Dyer, and he would talk about God or Krishna or Buddha or Allah or all of the or divine spirit or universe. It's like, I don't care what somebody wants to call it.
Yeah.
In the end, it's about getting your love frequency and your orb and everything as big as possible. Yeah. And when you relate it to like, how can I make my affirmations, my mantras, my prayers as strong as possible? Well, I'll tell you about me. It's not when I eat a bowl of sugar. It's just not. I've had to go so hard in my physical health because I know my brain and my ability to really try to channel good things is dependent on keeping it as healthy in the machine way as possible.
Yeah. Oh, no, correct. And you're touching on something that's very important. People try to kick the can down the road of faith and say, okay, accept Jesus, you're going to go to heaven. Okay. And then they're forgetting the fact that like in the process of us living our life, Jesus asked us to, in the Bible, to care for the vessel, our temple, which is the vessel of the Holy Spirit, right? That what I know, this might sound aggressive, but like the devil is out to take us out of our life.
Yeah.
In
Devil,
one way or another.
Evil. Ego.
All that stuff.
It's all the stuff that tries to suck you from living your highest level.
Highest, best, most good, most loving self.
Which helps others be their highest.
Correct.
It's all.
So if we're all operating on these things and we're operating in harmony with one another, we really are achieving a version of heaven on earth and peace on earth. Okay, so if you're eating improperly, if you're gossiping, if you're doing all these things that collectively any religion under the sun agrees as bad, then you're not your best, I'm not my best, and we are not our healthiest.
It's a literal quantifiable energy level.
Correct. So a friend of mine who is not a believer, I reached out to him, a believer in Jesus anyway, but he's a big believer in affirmations and visualization, manifestation. And I'm like, you know what? I'm 42. Life is not going as great as I want it to be. I need to make changes this year. I can't. So I go, hey, bro, what are you doing with these manifestations? What are you doing with these affirmations, visualization? What are you doing with that stuff? And how can I incorporate it? So you know what he sends me? My friend Devin Long, who, by the way, co-star on CBS's Ghosts.
There you go.
Guy that I started out in entertainment with, and we didn't have a pot to piss in. We didn't know nobody. We were just doing anything we could. And now this dude's like married. He's got a kid on the way. Him and his wife are doing amazing. They moved into a house. I'm like, I want some of those results. So he sends me The Power of Awareness by this author named Neville, who reads it. And you know what? Now I'm doing my visualizations every day, my manifestations every day. And my brain, and I feel... some possum.
Sorry.
I feel... No, he didn't run over it. It was already
dead. I just avoided it.
So, I feel... And I'm like, little things are starting to happen after taking on this habit every day, where I'm like, man, somebody reached out to me with this project. We have a new chief revenue officer that I'm working with. A big appointment came. I'm like, there's something to this. There's frequencies, the energy you're talking about. Why would I be, as a Jesus follower, so narrow-minded to think that other people don't have something figured out that I can hop onto?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And sometimes when you study a new thing or a new mantra, a new saying, it's new, so it's fresh. Like, it's almost like a new bit, right? When you do new stand-up bits, they always sometimes do better because there's more life to them because it's new. And if someone's just going to, by all means read the rosary if that's what you want, but if someone's doing that and kind of going through the mechanisms of it, that might be different than learning a new saying that you're trying to intend for. Like there's one I found that really resonated with me coming off of being so bitter for so long, which was, isn't it great that everything's working out?
Wow.
Because we too often see all of the negatives, especially in the world of entertainment, because of how cutthroat it is, that we have to look for those small victories and expand on them because it is all working out. And by the way, I love that we took the side roads home. I love that I get to have this conversation with you going through the countryside here because I've never driven through this area and it's a really nice day.
Dave, bro, we literally drove through horses. And
I want to end this.
Horse cows.
I want to end this as we approach the house, just to show you kind of where we're at now. But I want to tell you this. The day before I moved, this is what I thought I was going to cry about. I kind of got blindsided by the COVID pregnancy thing.
Yeah.
But I had one of my best friends passed away from a stroke, unexpected, 8 years ago. And young, early 30s. And he was my rock. Always, every time we were home for the high school football game on Thanksgiving, just see you there. Need to go to the mall, do something stupid, see you there. Need help with I had a company and everyone else had quit on me, he shows up. Doesn't care if he gets paid or not. He was this guy, always there. And I was throwing a bunch of stuff out the night before we were moving, and I had this garbage bag from my old car. It had dried up bullshit in it. It had things that I need, getting ready to throw it out. What pops out? His obituary card. And it was just a beautiful moment that I was like, I lost it. And Tasha's freaked out because she's like, what are you crying for?
That's happened to me before.
And I was like, no, this is he's here. It's just a reminder. And it doesn't matter if it was just the law of randomness or not.
Whatever it is.
And I just want to relate that back to you because you've got that same sort of energy of Todd shows up when you need him. And that's something we shouldn't take for granted when we have friends that are loyal like that. And now with the kid on the way in 2 months, I go, how the hell do I teach my kid to be that way? To know that loyalty is more important than, whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't have the answers to that, but when you see it, you go, that's what I want to raise.
I think I do, and I think it's because you model it, dude. I think you can't preach something if you're not. I think if you can't do it, you're not leading by example. And I believe that you model that, which is why you attract people that are like that, because you've shown up and you've offered your support, and all the things that you do. You are reaping what you sow. I want to add to what you just said, and my dad passed away 2009. Wait, was that really? My gosh, 2010, 2009. Yeah, 2009. So when he passed, I blocked it out for a long time, and I just focused on trying to be funny, and I was partying a lot, and that caused some havoc in my life. But and as a dude, I kind of block out weaknesses too much, and I don't sit in pain. Anyway, all that stuff being said, is I'm in Nashville. My dad, like I said, is half black, and Tennessee State is a historically black college university, and he attended there in the 60s during civil rights, and wow. he experienced some really traumatic stuff, up to and including having a shotgun in his mouth by members of the KKK, and his teammates getting bit by dogs by a caravan of the KKK that pulled over their team's van on the way to play a football game in Mississippi. So I'm every time I come to Nashville, something happens that makes me reminded of him for whatever reason. So the other night, a friend of mine was texting me about something that popped up about me on Google, and I'm trying to scroll down Google to find out what she was talking about, and the very bottom of the Google search was my dad's obituary.
Wow.
And I was like, oh man, I'm in Nashville. It's just, and it's always happened when I come out here, because like I said, my dad went to school out here.
There's a spiritual flow out here.
Yeah. And I'm glad to have experienced that, because it really helped me connect with them also. And that's a cool story you share, man.
I'm glad you felt that. We're home.
Amen. And there's Dave's pregnant wife and
the dog right there.
Dog. And
maybe we can get Tasha to make an appearance before we cut.
Parents-in-law.
Let's see if Tasha wants to come in. Tasha, come say hi. But yeah, man, thanks for listening to my emotional thoughts here.
Thank you
but when I came here, and let's just roll the windows down so we can get her on camera. We're still on camera. We're just wrapped up.
This is my friend Tasha. She happens to be married to my other friend Dave.
I cried because I'm an idiot. But I just shared how just a lot of all the energy we felt moving in the COVID early pregnancy and things like that. But anyhow, we're wrapping it up. We're just wrapping up our interview right here. But anyway, you're one of Tasha's favorites, if not favorite.
Oh, wow. High honors.
High approved. All right, we'll go inside. Let's wrap it up. Where can people find you, support you? Todd Marcel Doram.
Yep. That's my website. It's going to be launching here in a week or so, but all my socials are Todd Marcel Doram.
Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Dave.
I didn't know how bad I needed this, so sorry for making.
I'm proud of you. Do you have a house that you helped fund with money from your entertainment? And
it's working out for you too, my guy. So
Amen.
Just keep on feeling that. All right, everyone, have a good day.
Thank you for watching.
How about that?